A real crime. In a series of podcasts, I want you to travel down some lonely roads with me. These are the roads I traveled with families who never got to say goodbye to loved ones. These family members were fated to live the rest of their lives waiting and wondering. I will begin this series with unsolved murders, but I will also revisit cases that include arrests because aspects of the case are worth re-examining. I wrote these stories when I worked as a reporter for the Charleston Gazette. Thanks for joining me. I'm still exploring the death of Jeremy Bell, a promising preteen who died too soon. I wrote a book about his death, Episode 27, Getting Away with Murder. In response to a call to the 911 center, police and paramedics arrived November 8, 1997, at Edward Friedrichs' cabin on the New River. Emergency responders were told a 12-year-old had had a heart attack. The day before, Friedrichs drove himself and two of his students to the cabin for a fishing trip. The cabin had no telephone. Emergency responders collected the body of one of the students, Jeremy Bell. A deputy took the student who survived back to the student's home. Driving his own car, Friedrichs followed police out of Thurman to the Fayette County Sheriff's Department office in Fayetteville. In the office, police asked Friedrichs a few questions. Then he told them he did not feel well. They allowed him to drive himself to his house unaccompanied. Once at his house, Friedrichs wrote a note to his wife using a pen with red ink. In a closed garage, he tried to kill himself by redirecting car exhaust fumes from his Subaru station wagon. Family members rescued him, and he was rushed to the hospital. The amount of carbon dioxide in his blood showed that he was close to succeeding in this suicide attempt. 2 months after Bell died, on January the 16th, 1998, the county prosecutor at the time issued a one-page, one-paragraph statement that was not written on official stationery for either the sheriff's office or the prosecutor's office. The victim's name is the only name in the press release. The press release states that after extensive investigation of the events surrounding the death of Jeremy Bell, police and prosecutors determined that no conclusive evidence of foul play has been established. At the time of the press release, there was no extensive investigation. The press release goes on to state that the medical examiner determined that the 12-year-old choked to death on his own vomit. The medical examiner also found evidence of a prescription drug in the child's system, but the child and no members of his family ever had the drug amitriptyline prescribed for them. An antidepressant, amitriptyline, can only be obtained with a doctor's prescription. The press release also states that the adult person present at the scene of this death, who originally cooperated with the investigation, has now refused to be questioned further upon the advice of his legal counsel. No criminal action appears to be warranted at this time. The implied argument is, get a lawyer and any further criminal investigation will go away. 3 years later, after a new sheriff and new police officers finally looked at the evidence, they discovered chloroform. Once they realized this deadly toxin was part of the equation, they would go on to prove how Bell actually died. In those years, while free of any criminal charges, Friedrichs probably believed he'd gotten away with murder. Friedrichs worked in school systems in both Pennsylvania and West Virginia. Although he was never charged with any crimes in Pennsylvania, many adult men came forward after Jeremy died. They broke their decades of silence to tell how Friedrichs abused them when they were his elementary school students. A child's death tipped the balance. Some of them even testified under oath in court. After Jeremy died, Friedrichs' co-workers also came forward. Based on testimony they gathered from former students and colleagues, police could see a clear pattern. Friedrichs had a long history of experimenting on boys he was interested in using pills and chemicals. Friedrichs was a principal at another elementary school, Powton Elementary. Teachers and at least one parent witnessed Friedrichs announce that he had to give medicine to several boys. He put these boys in his office. Decades later, One man told police he thought he was getting out of class, and in his elementary school mind, he thought that was great. He said Friedrichs would wake him up in time for him to catch his bus to go home. One teacher at the same school said he saw boys out cold in Friedrichs' office. Several teachers went to the Fayette County Board of Education and tried to convey their fears, but board officials did not act on the concerns they raised. Several of these former students, now adults, told me that Friedrichs always wanted everyone to think he was the smartest guy in the room. This attitude made Friedrichs think he could dabble in medication and even chloroform, and no one would know what he was doing. Over the years, Friedrichs invited several of his students for fishing and swimming at his cabin along the New River. After time at the cabin, the students told me they often returned home sick. They did not know what was making them sick. One student said he believes now that Friedrichs put something in their Kool-Aid and cherry Pepsi. Another student testified he went with Friedrichs and Friedrichs' children on a camping trip out of state. This student, now an adult, testified that Friedrichs made him and Friedrichs' own children drink bitter Kool-Aid. Each child protested the nasty taste, but Friedrichs made them drink it. After he was required to consume the drink, the former student said he woke up to find Friedrichs trying to rape him. As a child, this student never told anyone about what happened to him on this camping trip. As an adult, he testified about his experience in Fayette County Circuit Court. Several students gave the same description of what Friedrichs made them drink: bitter and chalky. Students also said they were challenged to take part in the juice game. Friedrichs would place glasses full of drinks he prepared for the boys he invited to be with him. The challenge? See who can drink all the contents first. With 11-year-old boys, this was a winner. Friedrichs began his teaching career in Pennsylvania. When Pennsylvania parents found out about him, they protested to their Board of Education and demanded he leave the classroom. They did not know he was given a letter of recommendation and allowed to leave his job. Friedrichs never faced any criminal charges in Pennsylvania. With the letter of recommendation from his principal, Friedrichs got a teaching job in Fayette County, West Virginia. In time, Friedrichs would testify that he panicked when he realized Jeremy Bell died in his custody. His attempted suicide demonstrates panic, but as time passed and he was not arrested, he must have believed he would never be caught. Thanks for listening. Tommy Signer, who usually records me, is taking a well-earned break. Thanks to Brenda Pinnell for her great work. Please join me next Wednesday for a new episode of A Real Crime with Susan Williams.